Sweet little crocus, Goskus, has asked me questions, and of course I want to answer the second part now, which is who is my favorite villain from our own history here in Middle-earth, or maybe from another universe. So, oh dear, this is really rather difficult. You know, I'm going to go for the cheap answer, darlings, and I'm very sorry about that. But sometimes I think that the biggest villains are sort of the best. So I'm going to say Melkor. I know, that's very cheap of me, darlings, but, you know, he was the original evil, wasn't he? And there's sort of, I don't know, there's something sort of fun about that, and you can understand why if you had your own role that you were given, and when you try to express sort of your individuality in that, I mean, who doesn't want to show who they are through their work? Um, Being told that you're an abomination of sorts, I can sympathize with why you would sort of turn against that person. Not that I'm saying what he did was right, I'm just saying I can understand. And I think a lot of times with villains, perhaps, there is sort of, it's difficult for people to understand where the line is between sympathizing with the plight of someone who is a villain and agreeing with what they do. These are very different things, darlings. Um, and for that reason, a lot of times I do sort of sympathize more with the villains who have sort of been, you know, railed against by their society or a group of people, and they just get to that breaking point, and they take a path that is open to them, and sometimes um, it's really in the eyes of the beholder who the hero and who the villain is. And so, you know, I don't really indulge too much in fantasy and sort of um, reading about other sort of mythos or anything, but I feel like very often there's more of a grey nature to villains than there are to the heroes. Um, in fantasy, not in our own history, where our heroes are very browbeaten and sort of tested time and time again and suffer very greatly. But I feel like in so many stories, the hero just sort of does what he does because he feels that he has to. And I'm not saying that that's not a good reason. Of course, many of us have to go through sort of similar things, but I feel like the villains really um, they sort of suffer more, and you can understand why they would want to fight that. If you've been sort of beaten and harassed all your life, of course, eventually you're either going to be broken by it or you're going to fight back. And isn't that what so many revolutions are? And a revolution is only a revolution if you win. Otherwise, you're rebels, and you're bad guys. So I sort of sympathize a lot of times with the villains for sort of the suffering um, that they've had to go through. And there are moments, of course, darlings, where all of us sort of feel the pull of a darker path, and where we want to indulge in these things that we really shouldn't, and and we just have to know how to fight it, and that's very difficult. And I don't think we should necessarily just blanketly hate those who either have that weakness or who sort of get consumed by a strength of theirs. I think I've completely lost the train of thought that I was sort of supposed to stay on. So I'm just going to sort of stop here, but I hope that I at least gave you the answer to one of your questions, darlings, and I have sort of a lot to sort of think about now. Anyhow, darlings, ta-ta.